All right, fifth grade, this is your art project 26 that you're to do. And there are really two things that you're going to be doing here. One of them is drawing. Of course, you have all the directions right here. And so you can choose any dog that you want to in order to, to draw what you need to do. But you're going to be practicing your one-point perspective to be able to draw the dog house, which is in the background. Now, you got a couple of pages. You got this one, which is the backyard, and you've got the other side, which is a field, and obviously you'd probably put a shepherd out there. You have 4 different dogs that you can practice with, and so if you look, and they're very simple, and anything that you're drawing, it always gives you an opportunity to practice a little bit on those particular dogs. And so you're working on any dog here, and you follow the steps. Like here you have a terrier, and it gives you what to draw, little rectangles at first to give you an outline sense of where you're going to be. A poodle, an Old English sheepdog, kind of one of my favorite ones, at least the way it looks. And then you have this one. This is probably one of the more difficult ones, the beagle, believe it or not, to draw. This is probably be about the second difficult. The poodle is really not as difficult, but it does have a lot more detail in it that you have to work on, as you can see. So let's go ahead and do a terrier. We'll just start with that. And so what I'm looking at is I'm looking at drawing lightly the different parts that are there. And so I've got my my rectangles that I'm working through, and I'm trying to match up as best as possible of what they have drawn there. And it's probably about right here is where the back is. Remember, these are going to be erased, so they don't need to be perfect in the first place. You're just getting your first sense. You can see the big rectangle, the little one there. And then you've got his front legs a little bit angled forward as opposed to the back legs. And then you've got the neck, which is another part here. And then you've got the longer rectangle for the head. So you can see now, this is pretty similar to what is in your book, all right? Now, the second thing is to draw the feet and the tail and the eyes and the ears, and so I'll draw this, like this tail here, okay? All right, and then I've got my feet here, and trying to get it across so that it matches up right where they are. And this coming up like this and right into the bottom of the foot. You can start to see the dog is taking shape now as to what they are going to be doing. And then you've got this part, and then the eyes, which is a sort of an upside down triangle in a sense. And then the ears, which are some longer triangles, because of this type of dog, it's going to have longer ears, and of course you'll have a triangle in the background there. All right, so you can already see it's starting to take a little bit more shape. And so what we're doing then is we're going to start rounding these areas, and you see here where it's a little more rounder as compared to what's there originally. So we can start, it says sketch the dog adding the fur, and so we start adding the fur. And remember, the human brain will add in some detail, so you don't have to have every single part drawn in, but it gives you an idea. And I'm going to add a little bit more from what's there because my dog is a little bit bigger, but you can always add more afterwards. And so one of the things that you got to learn to do is to imagine your mind where it's supposed to be. Now, I messed that up a little bit, I think, or a little bit different than what I wanted it. So I'm going to put some things there, and then rounding it off here. And the fur, remember, an animal, if you've ever seen a dog when it's kind of funny, actually, when a dog has its, takes a bath and it gets wet, and how little dog there is and more fur there is there. And so that gives you an idea of what we're trying to do. And so trying to make this a little bit more friendly looking. You know, these pointed ears, you don't want to quite as pointed and not a demon dog. And so I mean, the ears are pointed, but you can see now it's a little bit less pronounced, as pointed, a little bit rounded on the ends. All right, and so now I'm going to look here, and I'm going to start trying to adjust my picture a little bit. Try to make it a little bit more friendlier looking, because terriers are not they're not evil dogs or anything like that, and so when you round something, it makes it less evil looking, I guess you could say. And so you start to bring out some of the details, and I can still see what I have there. Make the eyes a little bit smaller, the nose probably a little bit smaller there as well. Okay, and so then you have, and I have his beard is a little bit too much there, but terriers do have a little bit more hair on them, but not quite as much as like a poodle or a sheepdog would. And so then we're going to round out his posterior area here a little bit. All right, remember, you see how the leg will sort of overlap, and it goes into. So we're going to make this. All right, you usually don't see this part, but we can imagine now where his leg is. So you see now you get that rounded part of the leg. You can see almost like his knee here, where he is. And so we'll attach now his foot to the, nope, something not right there. But we'll attach his foot a little bit more up this direction. All right, so you see it's starting to take shape now. We're going to get rid of this part because he doesn't have that. You wouldn't see that normally, especially on a sketch. Now, the neck is a little bit thinner, and so I can make it a little thicker. I probably should. I mean, most terrier, this particular type of terrier, would probably be a little bit thicker. But you see how the neck and area goes more toward the top of the dog. And so then we're going to work on the belly side, because it's not necessarily that you would see the rough part of it, the actual, and you can even add some more hair if you wanted to. But then we'll work on this front leg here is the last part. And we got his leg here. All right, so gives you a little bit better idea there. Now, if you wanted to put a little bit more detail there for his toes, but it's just a sketch, and so there you have a good sketch of the sheepdog, and I mean of the terrier there. And if you wanted to do some other type of dog, but you get the idea. You start off with what you have. I'm going to make his tail look a little bit better because his tail is a little bit strange looking there the way it had it. All right, and there you go. And so there's a good terrier there, and you can make your own, of course. Now, for the perspective, of course, if you remember, you always use a straight edge, and I'll just use this as my straight edge right here because that's what I have available. It's not very straight, but it's okay. And I'm going to put a dot. That's my perspective. And so you would do the same thing here. You would make a perspective line, and wherever that perspective line is, that's where all the points of your doghouse should go to. So if you look here, now what they have is they start off with a square, and so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to make a square. Now, I don't have to use a straight edge. I can. If I can get a decent square, I don't really need a straight edge. This is the front of my doghouse. And then I'm going to put above the perspective, I'm going to put the tip of my doghouse. Okay? Then make my straight lines down to the doghouse itself. And I would erase this line here, is what it's telling me to do. All right, and so you see that step then. Each of these lines then should be drawn so that every point goes directly to my line. Now it's easier with the straight edge, that's for sure. So I'm going to do it freehand because I can pretty much eyeball it fairly well. And you can see that each of these goes to that point. Now what they've also done is they've taken what's called the eave of the roof of the house. It goes, this is the part that goes past the edge of the house. And so now it says here to sketch the back side of the doghouse. And so what I'm looking at then is I'm looking at, it's going to be the same, it's going to follow the same angle, but you see it's shorter, but it's going to follow the same angle as this. It's also going to go a little bit past. Why? Because that's the eave of that part. So that means underneath is where it starts, and that's going to be straight up and down. So you see how that is parallel to this line here. So that should be parallel. That's the back of my doghouse. You can see it now, the back of my doghouse. And so I'm going to then make an opening for the doghouse. And so that opening that you have there, all right, you can see now I can erase this part, and I've got this top of the doghouse. And so now I've got, I'm going to put some, I guess I can keep those there. But I'm going to put some shingles on the house, and the shingles should follow in line as well. And so just like this follows in line, okay, this would follow in line toward the dot, okay. So each one is going to be a little bit closer in the back than it would be in the front. Now you see this one already follows that. So now I can go back and I can erase my lines, my perspective line, my other lines. I've got everything going to that one perspective, and you see how I've done this lightly. So now when I erase it, it pretty much disappears. So all I see now is my doghouse. One little line there I'm going to get rid of. And if you needed to use that perspective line again, you can. You can see, follow this, it's right there. All the lines point to it. But then on this side, of course, because it's underneath, you can see. So then what I do is I start darkening my lines to make my doghouse more pronounced. All right, and so I'm just going to darken them, make it a little bit straighter, the lines. Now if you want to use a straight edge, it does make it a lot easier to use a straight edge. As you can see, now that I've drawn two lines there, it makes it look a little strange. But straight edge certainly makes it a lot easier to do that. And it's a lot sharper, but you know, you can do it freehand. It's not too hard. And I'm going to make these a little bit, these lighter I'm going to keep because I think it gives a little bit better picture of the roof that way. I draw this one down here, and undercut that, back here again. So there we go. All right, now I notice my angle is a little bit off on this, so I'm going to make it a little bit better. So this is, you can practice first, and I put some paper in there for you to practice it on, in your packet. And so there you have the doghouse, and you can of course put the dog in the yard like they have here. And it wouldn't matter which dog you use. You can do it for a sheepdog as well. They even have some little sheep that you can draw. Those are just wiggly lines like clouds that you would draw around. You know, you have your, I mean, that's kind of the right there, the sheep. Then you add the head a little bit, and then you have little feet that are sticking out, little tail. Maybe he has an extra foot. Who knows? Could be one of those sheep after you know, had some radioactive leak or something like that. But you know, little sheep, and there's his mouth. And if you've seen sheep before, there's some lambs that are right down here on 1/16. Of course, I'd erase that line between because his neck goes right into his body, and so his head goes in the body. And there you can have sheep like that if you wanted to, if you're going to do that one. A little sunshine in the background. But that is how you do this lesson. All right? Hope that's helpful for you. Have a wonderful day.